All right, welcome tonight. This is another panel discussion with the Race Amity Club. Tonight we're doing a little different. We've got some new guests. So we're going to go around, introduce ourselves. Tonight we're going to be talking about the documentary 13th. It's a Netflix documentary. Really good documentary. I think there's a lot to it. And really looking forward to a good discussion tonight about it. And I'm going to kick it over to the leader, the president of Race Amity, Supraja, to wow
Hi,
us with her introduction.
I'm Supraja. I am the president of Race Amity Club, and I'm a rising senior. Eamon.
My name's Eamon. I'm also a rising senior, and I'm a member of Race Amity Club. Alana?
I'm Alana. I'm a rising senior, and I'm now recently a joined member of the Race Amity Club. Camille.
Hi, I'm Camille. I'm a rising senior, and I'm a member of the Race Amity Club. Shruti.
Hi, I'm Shruti. I'm also a rising senior and a member of Race Amity. Anika?
Hi, I'm Anika. I'm also a member of the Race Amity Club, and I'm a rising senior. Liam.
Hi, I'm Liam, and I am an alumni class of 2018 for North End High School.
Hi, I'm Evelyn. I'm a rising senior and also a member of the Race Amity Club.
Excellent. Is that everybody? Anybody want to give like a minute summary of what this documentary was about before we get into some of the questions and how we felt about it?
Yeah, I can take that. So it's a history of the United States criminal justice system, beginning with its origins in post-Civil War era with passage of the 13th Amendment, which outlawed slavery except for involuntary servitude and prison. And so the whole point of the documentary is to emphasize the fact that the prison system has been used for the past 150, 160 years in this country to systemically incarcerate minorities, particularly blacks, and keep them in a condition of forced servitude and keep them beneath.
You froze. That's a pretty good summary. I think it's kind of a good jumping off point to our first general question about how this documentary made all of you feel. It was meant to elicit strong emotion, and the emotions can run the gamut of hopeful to just kind of what is going on, how can we ever change anything. So it really kind of runs the spectrum. So I want to get your opinion on how you felt about that, how like what you felt the message of the documentary in general was. Turn it over to you guys.
I guess I'll go first. A lot of people recommended this documentary to me, and they were talking about it, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. But I think when I actually saw it, it was extremely powerful. I think to hear words are one thing, but to see these images of these people being treated unlike humans it's frankly, it's terrifying. It's like people have done this to other people at one point in time, and I think it's a very powerful image, like Mr. Sheehy said, that invokes very strong emotions, maybe of hopelessness, oh my god, what has happened, what is going to be of our country, or of motivation to actually take part in the movement, try to initiate change.
That's I want to stop you. You said something really interesting. At one point in time, what time are you talking about? Has anything changed? I think is a question I want to get to. So kind of run the gamut on what you mean by that and that.
I guess when I said the one point in time, the footage they had was of, it's like extreme explicit violence. Even though that did happen with George Floyd extremely recently, back then it wasn't very rare to actually see violence, I guess. I think one example that's in my mind right now is the Ku Klux Klan, and they talk about the birth of a nation, and just to see how terrible everything was, especially on film that was celebrated, it was definitely crazy.
So I think that that's an interesting point that you make, and I think that when we're talking about this, we want to talk about educating and learning. And unfortunately, those images have been around from the very beginning. Like postcards were made of lynchings and like distributed as souvenirs. Um, Images of atrocities have been collected and distributed for as long as atrocities have been committed. 1960s, you have news footage of police dogs attacking protesters. So I mean, it's like this long history, and I think that the documentary did a good job of kind of showing that history and making those connections.
Definitely.
Shruti, you're nodding your head. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I found interesting was like how they showed like the media's role in it, because like even The Birth of a Nation, like that film was so popular back then. It was played in the White House, and like it's looking back, like we can recognize like the biases, but like back then it was like a systemic way for like the government to portray the Black community as criminals. And like it was like not even just that film, like even after, like you can hear in the speeches, like presidential speeches, even Nixon, he doesn't say like the war against cocaine, right? He never says the Black community explicitly, but it's always been like hidden and attached to the Black community, and like that's caused us to have that bias that like, and that's probably why like our police system, like that's why like the Black community is treated differently, because like the history goes back to it that like it was politicized to the point where like the government made it like just connected crime to like Black community, whereas like if you look at the actual like numbers, it's probably equal across like the white community and the Black community. But it was just a way for like especially conservative presidents to like get a stance, get a majority, and get a hold.
Did you guys ever watch when that show Cops? Anybody? When I was your age, there was a show called Cops, and it would follow cops as they arrested criminals. And guess who all the criminals were? Guess where they were from? And the more you process that now, that subtle, like you said, that like subtle kind of push of like, these are our criminals, these are whoever, the bad people, that subconscious kind of like systemic racism is kind of what was pushed upon people of my generation. In my generation, we like to say we don't see race or whatever, but you do subconsciously through media. Nika, what do you think?
When I first I watched the thing, and the first thing that came to mind is just like seeing all the injustices happening like within prisons and stuff, and how they're being like, how Black people are being targeted. Just kind of showed that not a lot has changed since like pre-Civil War era, and even like after the Civil War, because they're still stuck in this sort of battle against oppression, and this the oppression that they're facing always stems from like the government, and you keep seeing that happen with like police and everything. All like all the injustice that's being done to them always stems back to the government. So I feel like the only way to fix that is to focus on like the moral issue of it, and like stop looking so much at the politics. But that's hard to control, because that's always been like a focus in America.
Evelyn, what about you?
Well, I found it really eye-opening when they mentioned the part of like the whole prison system has been privatized, and so many private companies are profiting off of mass incarceration. I found that like extremely interesting, but also like scary and like terrifying because of how dehumanizing it is, first of all, and second of all, I had like no idea. I've never, like in school, I've never learned about like it's not even subtle, but like racism like this in society, that's not even, it's not like outright in your face like discrimination on the street, but it's just more embedded in everyday things like this. It's just, it really scared me.
Any other initial thoughts on how the film made you feel?
I agree with Evelyn on that last point about the corporations and how they're profiting off the system. It was really just one more uh, sign of how broken the system is. That the reason that the population in prison has gotten so big is because these companies have an incentive to keep them there, and it's disgusting, to be honest.
Yeah, and going off of that, like the way that they're profiting off of like African American people in prisons, just it just seems like another form of slavery. So it just kind of shows that not a lot has changed.
So I think that's a nice way to transition to like a second question.